Get the hell away from me. Get the hell off me. Help. Someone. Help. Anyone. Oh, shit. Yo, what is up guys, it's Tyrant Swine here and welcome to another game review. This time I'm reviewing Dying Light, a first-person open-world zombie apocalypse game with some parkour elements to it. Now, the story of the game is that you are a character called Kyle Crane who's been sent to the city of Haran to basically gain a secret file for the organization he's working for. And of course, the city is infested with zombies. Over time, as he helps out the survivors in the city, he starts to realize that something isn't right, and he starts thinking a bit more, especially when he meets the main villain of the game. The more of his friends that start dying, the more he goes against the people he's working for, and then realizes the truth that the virus that caused the entire outbreak, they are trying to weaponize it, and then basically at that point he goes against them so he can find a cure to save everyone. Now, honestly overall, I'd say the story in this game is a bit meh, but usually stories in zombie games aren't really all that good anyway, but it was okay. I mean, most of the characters weren't exactly decent. The only likable characters really were the main character himself. It was okay. He's not the worst open world type character I've seen, but he's okay, he fits the role. And of course there's the only other two characters that are actually likable, the only two female characters in the game, which are called Jade and Troy. These two characters at least put more effort into the voice acting compared to all the other male characters. And of course there's the main villain himself, who's called Ryaz. This doesn't feel really decent. He just kind of tries to rip off Voss from Far Cry 3, but does a very, very poor job of it, and it's really not that likable. So most of the characters in the game, apart from a few, are actually decent, and of course people do die in this game along with main characters, and of course they kill off one of the better characters, and that kind of sucked really. Probably the only time where one of the characters dies where you're actually like, well, that sucked. So overall the characters in the game weren't done pretty well. I mean, there's a few likable characters. I mean, Dead Island didn't really, since this game is supposed to be the successor to Dead Island, it's a little bit better compared with characters and storyline, but not much better. It's very slightly ahead. Now, of course, since this is a zombie game, and it is an open world game, it is a pretty big world, and of course you need to scavenge for weapons. Now, the weapons in this game are just like what they are in Dead Island, but possibly a little bit better. You can basically scavenge about up to 4 weapons at a time, and you can even upgrade them with blueprints and modifications, which in the end game are very, very helpful, especially when you go up against much more tougher enemies. Unlike Dead Island, you can't drive vehicles, but really since this is like suburbs and cities, there's really no point. And not only that, the game also has a very decent skill system. Like, you have 3 different skill areas. You have your leveling up ranking, which improves pretty much any aspect of yourself. Then you have agility and power. Agility is leveled up by doing basically anything that's parkour relatable, and power is basically killing as many zombies as you can, which helps out with your weapons and other things. Both of these skill levels are pretty decent. Agility and power especially since in the power area you can upgrade yourself to make more special weapons, or when you're having to repair a weapon for when it runs out for when it needs repairing, it can actually, since you can only repair a weapon a certain amount of times, and there is a skill level that can help out with lowering the amount of times or increasing the amount of times you can repair it, which is very useful. Agility is especially useful especially when you're having to jump around on buildings and stuff, and since there's some skills where you can take less fall damage, which is very useful. And yeah, and unlike Dead Island, where each of the separate characters have their own specializations, this one is basically gets rid of that, and you can just everyone levels up at the same time and have the same skill sets, which I think is better in my case. And so yeah. Also, again with the weapons, not only can you there is also not just melee weapons, which is also of course the main weapon usage. There's also a few guns in here, as well as a few explosives and throwing knives and stuff like that. The explosives are especially useful against the more bigger enemy targets, and hell, there's even a few equipment devices that can be used as distractions, and there's even traps around the world as well, which will help out with defeating the enemy, which are also useful. And also, since I said there's also guns, that does mean there's human enemies as well. There isn't just zombies to fight either. Now, of course, since the weapons can be modified, there is a lot of different type of modifications, and some either increase the durability of the weapons, the damage, or the handling, which are all very useful and necessary, and each different levels as well. So the more higher the level of the modification, the better the weapon is going to be. So finding those higher level modifications is most certainly a necessity. Now, let's talk about the level and the world itself. Now, there's two different areas to the game. There is your sort of like suburbs type of area, which is a lot more, where there's a lot of space around and stuff like that. So there's not very many roof escapes, and there's a lot of tunnels too, which mostly are blocked off and are quite difficult to get through. And then there is the old town, or city center, which is my more favorite area because it actually looks really nice, and I like the way it looks all medieval and the architecture looks really cool. It's also there's a lot of rooftops too, so that you can basically get away from zombies much more easier in the old town. But they do somehow end up on the rooftops anyway. But overall, I'd say the world, despite it being a decent and maneuverable area, compared to other open world games, it's not as decent to look at, but we all knew this game wasn't going to be focusing on looks, to be honest. So, but honestly, I think it was an okay world to like explore, see what there was. I like the way it did look, and very easy areas to escape from zombies, and yeah, basically the map design is basically focused on parkour and climbing around and stuff, so they definitely got that aspect of it right. I mean, it can be a little bit slippery in the parkour skills, but hey, compared to Mirror's Edge, and well, that's the only parkour game that's comparable, it's okay. But yeah, the world is okay and to explore and stuff like that, and there's a nice amount of like goodies around, like chests and supply cases. There's a lot of those around, and of course you need to use your pick lock to unlock them, and these increase in difficulty. And so yeah, along with lockpicks and other nice equipment that can be craftable, especially medkits. Medkits are a necessity also to craft, because you're going to get damaged a lot over time, so having a lot of medkits is definitely very useful. Now, not only that, there's also the zombies and the enemies themselves. Now, usually in these zombie games there is a lot of variations. This game is no exception. There is your usual infantry, slow-moving enemies. You have your quicker ones who are a little bit more maneuverable. You have there's an enemy type that spits acid, and then you have your more heavy enemy types. There's even a tank type, which it can be quite difficult to fight, but when you gain explosives, the heavy and tank enemy types become quite easy to take down. And there's even there's even a new zombie type where it's just like there's a baby zombie, which is quite creepy, especially since their defense is basically a scream, and the only way you can take them down is by snapping their necks. Yeah. And of course, at night, which is what this game is all about with the zombies, is the nighttime zombies. And of course, these zombies are a lot more powerful, and these guys you don't want to mess with, because these guys are difficult as hell to kill. That's why it's always best to run away from them as soon as it gets to nighttime. And of course, there is some missions in the game side quests that do revolve around going around at night time, and yeah, it can be quite dangerous. And of course, there's also human enemies, which compared to Dead Island, which were pretty easy to kill, along with the zombies too, the enemies are more difficult to kill in this game compared to Dead Island. And the human enemies themselves are even more accurate with their guns and can kill you in literally 2 or 3 shots. So taking them out with one-hit headshots is always the best thing to do with them. So as soon as you get a gun, make sure you keep it with you in case you encounter human enemies, because one shot to the head is always a killer against them, unless they have heavier armor. So I'd say the enemies are quite challenging at times, but when you get more higher skills, the enemies become a lot more easier to kill, especially when you get some skills that definitely help you out with killing them quicker. So overall, I'd say the enemies are quite challenging at times, depending on how many of them there is. Now, the missions and side quests of this game are okay, or, well, compared to Dead Island, they're actually a lot more fun and aren't as boring compared to Dead Island. The side quests are actually quite interesting, and were quite fun at times, and so were the main missions themselves. They were quite actually done pretty well, and since this game can be played cooperatively with up to 4 players, which I would recommend, because playing this on your own, it would get quite stale and boring pretty fast, but cooperatively, it is pretty fun. It's one of those games that's meant to be played cooperatively, especially since when your friend messes up or something, it can be pretty fun to see those events unfold, and it's just a nice, fun game to play. And there is also challenges scattered around the world, but honestly, these don't feel necessary, since by the end of the game I felt like I was powerful enough to like basically take on hordes of zombies and humans, but I didn't really see the necessity of the challenges and why you would need to do them. Yes, you get more XP and stuff like that, but I just didn't feel like they were rewarding really. So yeah. Now this game is also pretty long as well. It took about more than 30 hours to complete the game. That's actually pretty long for this kind of game. It was pretty much longer than I thought it was going to be. And so yeah, overall I think Dying Light was actually a pretty interesting zombie game. It was fun most of the time, and despite the story being a little bit mediocre, everything else is actually okay. And it even has a multiplayer mode where you can play as the zombie yourself, and where you battle against human players who have to take out nests. Didn't really play that mode, sadly, but honestly, it's just one mode, to be honest, for the multiplayer. So if there are a few more modes, then the multiplayer would have actually been pretty damn fun to play. So yeah. Overall, I think Dying Light was okay for a zombie game, so I'm going to give Dying Light a 7 out of 10. So, that is my review of Dying Light. An open world zombie game with pretty cool parkour skills, but a pretty mediocre story that could have been done a little bit better. But it's pretty fun cooperatively though. So, hope you've enjoyed this review. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what you think is right or wrong with the game, and I shall see you guys in the next random video.